So, hello everyone. Sorry, I have to click a little bit. Managing your own talk is a little bit an issue. So you have to be in 3 different windows at the same time. So welcome back. Now it's going to be easy to present because it's just presenting about me. Just remember that this is going to be the third session on today's Global Foresight Summit. And we are organizing this year's summit with the APF, the Association of Professional Futurists, and the World Futures Review, a journal on strategic foresight. So the goal of the Global Foresight Summit is to enrich the ecosystem of the futures and foresight and create a wider community that is letting more people to get in and embrace foresight to make this ecosystem thrive. So let me share my screen, and here I also ask for your, I will be switching a little bit just to look into the comments. I only have one screen, so it's difficult for me to see what you're saying in real time. So I will be going back and see if anything. If anyone from my team is watching me, I have my phone, so you can send me any type of message, and I can see if there is anything I have to look at quickly, okay? So, I will share the screen right now. I go here, and I'm going to, let me go in there and go to the presentation in full screen. So, okay, so today, my presentation is going to be about common issues when you are trying to adopt foresight. And this is something that I'm going to be approaching from a very personal experience over the last decade. Why is it last decade? We've been in the company, fast forward, I started the company like in 2015 with the previous company also doing foresight. In 2014, it was a very early stage to just have a company just doing that. Now it's much more common to see companies that just focus on foresight rather than at that moment in time. And but the last decade has been a shifting decade for people all around the world. And we came from the pandemic, we are in the pandemic, and we came from the economic crisis. So we've been going through very uncertain times that made foresight something more valuable for organizations and governments to try create something that lasts over time. So we don't build on these fluffy clouds that can crumble at any moment in time. We had two big crises in the last decade, and we probably will have more in the coming years. So I talk from this in my personal experience because my own path through life has been quite diverse in a sense. So my background is in computer science. I learned how to code, and I loved computing since I was a young kid. I worked for that in computer science for a long period of time, and started to discover all this concept of the social sciences and how people related to technology. And technology was a major driver of change at that moment. And you can see that it still is a major driver of change, and it's changing almost anything. And when I say technology here, I'm not just talking about the future and modern concept of technology, microchip, AI, and all that. I'm talking also about the wheel and the hammer. Those were technological tools at the moment, and technology is always driving change for humanity. But 10, 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, the technology as we know today with chips, computing, the internet, is the one that is taking the most representation when we talk about technology. When we started to look at how people use technology, I got more interested into that concept of the user experience. So I started to study more and studied industrial design. And after that, you start to mix. And this was a shift in my life when in 2007, the iPhone came out and you discovered technology, people, and design all coming together to shape the image in the mind of people of what the future is going to look like. And that was a hyper-technological connected world in the shape of a phone, of a touch screen. And that started to get me interested into how you construct these images of the future in your head, and how you connect different sciences and different methods and different fields. And all of that then converge to the same place. Is they are shaping the way we see the world. So we started officially, as I said before, in 2015. We started, yes, as a foresight consultancy. We were doing futures on foresight, and we've been doing that for the last 6 years. We don't do anything else. We just have only customers working in foresight and futures. So the personal experience here is that you get almost everything and almost nothing simultaneously. You get very common issues when trying to adopt foresight. We've been trying, and we've done very successful projects with different type of customers. We've done it with organizations at the government level. We do it with government bodies, smaller, and departments. We've done it with private companies, multinational companies, and we've worked with supranational companies, organizations too. And most of the times, we always face the same issues. Is that people, the leaders, the team members, they tend to ask or see foresight in the same way. So what we are going to be sharing now is our personal experience as a company. What we find that we always have to answer, or what we find that tend to be the common issues. So I will be more than open to learn about your issues. What do you confront when you try to explain foresight, sell foresight, or do foresight with a group of people that don't understand what you do? We are completely aware that foresight is a very abstract thing. Thinking about the future is abstract. It's not here. It's something that you are not actually able to see, to touch. It's not tangible, but we are selling it somehow. We are, yes, investing in that future. We are, yes, devoting time to that. So how you convince people? How do you tell stories that are helping them to understand what you do? So the first one that we always get, and this probably gets at the very beginning, we have like two different type of customers. The ones that approach us, that they know what foresight is at least, and they want to implement things on their organizations. And then the people that we believe will make a good use of starting to do foresight in their organization. So we approach them. And in both cases, we get to the same thing. What is exactly foresight when you explain it to a customer? And most of the times, the issue that we find, and this is probably related also to the previous talk with Alex, is that they know that this has something to do with the future. But the future in itself is nothing. It's abstract. It's just something that will happen. But this future in their mind is this little definition of what is going to happen or likely happening. So it has the connotation of linearity, a continuity. It's going to happen. Something is going to be there, like predestined. Actually, that is conflicting with the things that we work with when we are talking about futures in the plural form. We need to explain about the cone, about the possibilities, the plausibility, and everything. And there, they understand that as a known, it's more than just a period of time. It's an abstraction that is encapsulating what we, as a company, as a personal level, as a society, want the future to be. It's an encapsulation of expectations, vision, and needs. And that is probably one of the most difficult things to explain, that even though the future is not yet happening, it's encapsulating everything you think about it. It's the image that you have in your head about the future. And when you explain this to them, you usually go back to, yes, we are already doing that. We do the SWOT analysis. We are looking at trends. We look at scenarios. And we have a super nice big data machine full of numbers and things that is forecasting us the revenues of the next quarter. And they say, okay, yes, that is not foresight. Foresight is probably more about what you don't know and how you prepare for the uncertain. If you are sure that you are certain about all those things and that those trends are going to happen, then there's nothing about foreseeing things. That is probably the most common issue we have, is making people understand what foresight is. And then probably when we are beyond this point, and this conversation that has already happened, we have to repeat it again and again. It depends on the level. We go in meetings and then another meeting, and more people get to meetings. So you go back and back to the same points. You get into this way of, yes, this is just anticipatory thinking. We need to anticipate what might happen so we can prepare. That is the simplest explanation for us on what foresight might be. And this is biological in a sense, like we've been doing anticipatory thinking since the very beginning of humankind. Animals do it, even the plants do it when they lose the leaves for the winter and then they reshape. They anticipate for what might happen. They prepare to mitigate for something, to be ready for something that might happen. It might be good or bad, but indeed you are preparing for that. But when you pass this concept, you go into why is this important to me? I mean, we are already here. We are a super big multinational company with almost 100,000 employees. We are selling, and we have a cash cow here that is providing us with enough money and food. So why do we care about this? The future is, we don't care. We have, the bank account is full. We have people happy and they are working all over the world. And that is difficult, because how do you explain someone that has everything that they need to change, that they need to prepare for the uncertain, when they see the certainty of the present? They say, yes, but we are doing pretty nice. What are we going to get from the future? They believe, again, and if we go back to the previous version, is that they believe in this continuity of the present extrapolated into the future. They believe that everything is going to repeat. Everything is going to continue happen. And we use something like this. I don't have the reference here, but I will post it because I couldn't find the reference, that there is this side on the right side of the screen where you have foresight, but most of the organizations, they are doing hindsight or insight. And basically, it's about created competitive advantage. It's giving you the opportunity to grow in the future. And when you talk about hindsight, you have about what happened. This is about the data, the raw data, everything that you have in your organization. At the present time, you can try to create some insight. You can try to discover why did something happen. But you are talking about past data. You are using that to discover why. And then you can do predictive modeling. You can do predictive analysis. Given the data I have from the past, I can extrapolate and discover what will happen, but only if that situation, the context, the same elements that were in place in the past are in place at this moment. In case anything changes, what will happen will change. And that is when we go into the right side and we see the foresight and say, okay, so given my predictions, given my cost analysis, and given all the past information I have from my organization, the context, the world, anything about my industry or sector, what should I do to get the best results? How can I optimize myself? And then you go even farther and say, okay, But given this level of uncertainty, what should I do to get even better results? And that might imply that you change. You become something different. You go into an alternative timeline. You go into an alternative scenario. And those two big elements on the right side of the chart are exactly what explain why foresight is important. Most organizations, when we try to explain what is foresight and why foresight is important, they usually rely on the first area of this chart, on the hindsight. They look at what they had. Some of them are doing insight, but almost none of them see the value of doing the other one. So we need to start explaining again that level of issues. So we explained what is foresight. Then we explain why it's important, why you should be doing this. And even at this moment, some of them are still reluctant to understand what foresight is. They still don't think that foresight is going to provide anything. But that is happening because they still think of time as a linear thing and say, okay, and when will it happen? When will the future happen so we can get all the results, we can yield all the nice fruits that are ripe for collection? And say, okay, so we're going back to the timeline things. We go back to assuming that you are going to get something out of this. And that is probably one of the most difficult elements to see, because in some way, when you look at humanity, we've been trained for a long time with narratives, books, with movies, with stories, even with religion, to believe that time is linear, is predestined, and that it doesn't matter what will happen, it will be solved. So no, you need to act on it. You need to do things. So we cannot guarantee that something will happen, and we can even tell when something is going to happen, unless you are the one doing that. And we don't have any crystal ball that is asking, that we can ask and is telling you exactly when we are, and we cannot travel to the future and come back in order to get that type of information. But in this context, the most important thing that we do is making them understand what the future is all about. And this guy on the screen right now is Jorge Luis Borges. He's an Argentinian writer, poetess, and article writer, or he was doing a lot of things in the literature field. He passed away very recently. And the quote is in Spanish, because obviously he's Spanish, but it says, the future is not about what is going to happen. It is about what we are going to do. We are the ones doing things. And it's not about discovering what will come. It's about discovering how we are going to act given the uncertainties, the volatility, and the complexity of the world that we are living in, actually. That is the most important thing. So you don't go into the future and come back and you have a solution, and you don't even know when that is going to happen. What you are actually going to do is just explain that the actions you do today will help you shape how you are going to be tomorrow. And even in that situation, maybe you don't achieve the results. So you prepare for the uncertain, but maybe the uncertain never happens. When we get into this type of conversations, into this type of issues, we already tend to have a team of people in the customer that is already very aware of what foresight is, what are the methods, what are the methodologies, and all that. But still, there are things that still missing in the conversations about how can we explain the results of foresight to someone, or when will happen. But then you go up the ladder and go above the current level of management into leadership, and you get someone that says, yes, The future is whatever technology is trending right now. And then is when you do like, oh, poop. You go back and say, yes, we know technology is one of the major driving forces for humanity and how we change things, but technology alone is not the future. Technology is a tool. It's one of the driving forces. The other one is social sciences, society. Another one is the economy. There are many, many different driving forces that are shaping how we live today, are shaping our companies, are shaping the way we think. But this issue is recurrent. Every time we get to a level where foresight is understood, we end up with a question that say, yes, the future is AI, the future is IoT, the future is smart, whatever. The future is a technology, a product, a service, something that you can purchase today. In this concept, we have this concept of technotopias, where the technology of today, the technology of chips, computing, all these type of elements that you can get and you interact with them, and they are so nice, so shiny. So we build everything around them. We create these super smart societies where everything is controlled by technology, and technopias are super, super easy to fall in love with because they are utopias. They are perfect worlds driven by technology and growth, and everyone is thriving, and everything is green, and skies are blue, and cities are shining with flying things. But it's not exactly what technologies do for us. Just look at social networks. They were the shiny things of the past, now are the darkest pits in society. So it's like you can't deal or explain properly how technology is helping you to move forward, how technology is a tool, but it's not the goal. The future is not a certain technology. And the more you hear about technology, the more you will probably see that there is an invested interest into purchasing or implementing that technology. The goal, for example, if we are talking about cities, is not to make cities smarter. It's not to put sensors in cities. It's to make the cities more automatic, more autonomous, more conscious about how they are going to be serving the purpose of people. Technology for the sake of technology actually, or usually, or most of the times means nothing. You need to apply that to a construct, a social construct that is shaping what we believe society is going to be. And this is something that is super interesting. There's the short-sighted organizations. And I love this paradox because I'm short-sighted myself. I have myopia. It's just a little bit, only 1.0. But when you see how the eye works, you can see that the light goes into the eye, it goes in there, and it projects into the back of the eye, into the retina. If you are short-sighted, it means that the point where the image is forming is not hitting the retina. So you are unable to see with clarity. At that moment, we see everything blurred, and we are blinded by the lights. Most organizations are in this situation. They are short-sighted, and they are blinded by technology. But what I love the most about this physiological element of the human eye is that it resembles pretty much the future's cone. We have today, and we are short-sighted to see the future because the focus where it's being projected is not where it should be projected. And we are putting too much focus on the technology right away when we should be using technology for doing the things that we want to do with technology as a tool. So, okay, we go beyond the technology side, and that is a recurring one. It happens and happens once and again, and it gets in the same group of people, in the same customer. It's being repeated. Every time someone new comes into a team, a workshop, a meeting, or anything, we go back to the question of the future is certain technology, and we have to explain it again. And now, when we are past beyond that, they say, okay, we need to do the future. Let's hire a consultant. They will do this. Take consultancy X or Y or K or whatever consultant you want to get, and basically they are going to create the scenarios for you. They do the analysis and they give you everything like already cooked. It's like the food in the supermarket. You have ready meals, you have ready features. Okay, let's hire a consultant, we get a ready feature, and that's all. Why? Because we want success express. Why are we going to invest our team, our time, our resources, our budget into understanding the future, into understanding and relieving and solving that short-sightedness when we can hire someone that already knows how to do and give us the paper, give us the element that we need, which is the outcome, which is the scenario, the strategy, the theory, the trend, whatever you want to get from this, just let's get it right away by hiring someone. The issue here is that, yes, you can hire people to let you or help you understand the methodologies, understand the tools, understand how you should be increasing the maturity in your organization, the maturity level of understanding and dealing with the future, with uncertainty. But there is something that this type of hiring consultants or outsourcing the future to a third party is never going to give you. And they will never give you the literacy. They will never be able to create a culture of understanding the future, understanding how the future foresight, how the different tools can be used every day, not only as a unit that is in charge of foresight, but at the whole organization. And you are going to remove the learning, because to you, if you are hiring someone to do the work for you, you are outsourcing that. Basically, it's like I said, you go to the supermarket and you purchase something, you eat it, that's all. Just by buying food in the supermarket is not making you a cook. You are someone that is outsourcing your feeding to a third party. This is exactly what happens here. You will never learn how to use the futures, how to change your culture, and how to become more literate about foresight and the futures. So your maturity level on understanding and solving the previous issues on foresight at the whole organization will never increase. You start with a small set of people, you create a group, you start to spread the knowledge, you have small activities, and you create this ecosystem inside your organization that is talking about foresight. You are going to be fighting with many, many, many different people inside your organization, a lot of them. But the more you have been repeating the same conversations on foresight, you release papers, you share newsletters, you do workshops, you comment and give advice to other teams, you start to create this bandwagon that people want to be in. And it's the ecosystem of the cool people that is thinking about the future, but you need that to be your whole organization. You need that to be everyone in the organization. So just going in here, when they go there, the most biggest issue that we have in here is that most organizations think that they are immortal. And that is interesting, because immortal means that they are not able to die, because they are like an infomercial from the 80s. They are the best. Their product is not going to die. Everyone will always buy that. And that is a lie. Everything changes. And you don't look at the possible alternative. So you are in this position, in this little mountain that is the current situation of your company. This is your company here, and you are able to see, given your past data, your optimized point, which might be that one in there. But if you don't look beyond the data you have, if you don't look for alternative, you might be missing something bigger. That is not meaning that there is something bigger that you could be doing, something better, something alternative, but you might miss it if you don't look at the different things. And actually, the pandemic has taught most of the leaders around the world that uncertainty happens and it disrupts everything. And everything means everything. Travel, trade, income, purchase, even going to the street or the parks. So that is something that tells you that you are not immortal. Whatever you do, it can change and it will go. It will be washed away by something, somehow, in a period of time. You don't know if it's 1 year or 1,000 years, but it will happen at the end. You just need to be adapting to that situation. And that is like the most important thing. Organizations usually don't question their core business. They do whatever they do, and that's all. So going here is like the most important thing, and I'm aware of time, that I have very little time in here. Most of the organizations, and this is the last issue that we found, is that they don't really know where to make a fit for foresight. Who is in charge of this? Is that the strategy department? Is it the innovation department, because this is something new? Or do we create a new department? Do we have a different set of people? And we are talking here about how you are going to be feeding knowledge inside the organization. Remember, the organizations around the world are established in thinking silos, functional silos. So they tend to share information. We have some types of organizations that are open, horizontal. They go, the information flows very easily, but most of them are not like that. They have a silo for one thing and a silo for another thing. And they don't know where to place foresight. They don't know where to place this group of people that are going to be looking into the crystal ball, telling me something that might happen, but will never happen. So that is the vision in their minds. So over the last year, we discovered that there are many different ways of approaching this. If you take all these three elements and you look at them as a way of feeding information into the pipeline to the other ones, it tends to become something more of a pattern on how they expect things to happen, or what is the expectation when shaping things in a certain way. And the next slide is our personal experience in this. So the possible feeding pipelines is just to have a strategy at the very beginning, and then you have two combinations: strategy, foresight, innovation, or strategy, innovation, foresight. And it's how the information flows. You can put innovation at the beginning, and innovation is feeding the other elements. So you have innovation, strategy, and foresight, innovation, foresight, and strategy. Or you can put foresight at the very beginning, feeding the other departments, the other silos. You have foresight, strategy, innovation, or foresight, innovation, strategy. And why is important the way you put this in organizations that are in silos? Because each of these models is creating a different type of organization. For example, in the first one, what we are doing if we put the strategy at the very beginning is a limiting option. It's a very narrow approach that relies on the current strategy to explore the future. And when we think about the future that is within our strategy, we go into innovating into that future. So it's very narrow. Or the imitation one, which is, okay, we have a strategy, we look for what everyone else is doing, and then we look at what can we do in the future with these things that other people are doing that fit in our strategy. The third one, the one in the middle, is the follower. Oh, I see innovation around there. I'm going to include those innovation in my strategy. And after that, I'm going to look into what can we do in the future, given our strategy and the innovations we see outside. The fourth one, it goes in a very similar way. It's like, okay, what we are going to do is we are going to put the strategy at the very end. That is good because we shape the strategy given external elements, but the strategy is based on the current innovation that shape what we can do with that. It's technology driven. And almost the fifth one, the one from the last one, is applied foresight. is we have foresight at the beginning. We are going to analyze the context. We are going to see what are the possibilities. Then we define a strategy, and then we look about the innovation that we can do given our strategy. And it's applied, but it's still limited in a certain way. It's limited because the strategy is happening before you are able to innovate. And the last one is like the one we almost always propose is, yes, exploring the alternative, exploring the opportunities. Those opportunities help you to be very open and broad in terms of innovation. And those innovations, what you could possibly do is helping you to shape your strategy. In that situation, you are able to lead, and you are looking for what's coming in order to apply that innovative strategies and lead a future. So you're looking for alternatives. And that is one of the most difficult things to explain when we are working with customers, where you put foresight and how you use it, on what foresight is going to be informing or feeding into the rest of the silos of the organization is difficult. So my last one, and I go back to the previous one, is the what are your experiences? I'm going to go now on stopping my screen sharing and see what you've been talking about. But what are your experience when you have an issue applying things in foresights in organizations? Okay, so we have a few things. Okay, so we have here one question from Soli that say that, does it matter where the work starts in an organization or institution or network if the goal is diffusion of capability or literacy? Probably yes, but it's as I said in the last slides, it's like if you do that foresight beyond a strategy or after a strategy, it's going to be different. If you go after a strategy, it's going to be focused on literacy that aligns with your strategy. If you do it beforehand, probably when you are building capability or literacy, it's not falling under a strategy. It usually falls under human resources or the HR department, the training department, something like that, because they want to have a tick or a check. They say, we have 90% of the people trained in foresight. So if you want to create a diffusion of capability, it should be training, but most of the times it's not learning how to use a tool or what is a tool. It's about actually using that tool in your real situation, in the real world. We have more question. We have Tico, but Tico say here, do you think companies fail to activate foresight because they don't see value or because they don't know how to translate foresight into tangible and useful project? Actually, yes. Most companies expect foresight to be tangible, and they expect projects to happen. They don't expect to become ready for something that might disrupt their business. They expect to create a new business. Maybe that is the role of innovation, is whenever we are seeing new scenarios, we can start to apply and create new business models. If you think of the last element of the alignment of the three fields, it might make sense to put foresight at the beginning and then feed it into innovation, because at that moment in time, it will be easier for the organization to start creating these tangible elements, these useful projects that could be applied. I'm going to take the last one from Andrea. Do you think foresight could be applied in a startup environment? Actually, yes. And most startups, what I love about startups is that they see a gap in the system. They see something that the industry is not doing, the sector is not doing. They see the business model, they see the shift, they see the transformation, and they start to create something new that might shift the social paradigm of the planet. We see Uber, we see Airbnb, they created the shared economy. We are seeing many things like that. The goal or the issue here is, what do you consider a startup? Because startups are like a bubble. There are startups where the only goal is to get funding and then sell the company. And other startups, their goal is to change something, change society, change anything in a sector or an industry. For example, when we are looking into Foresight project, one of the most interesting things to look at is what are the newest startups in this field, in this sector, in this industry, and what are they proposing? Because they are the ones with the less number of limitations or constraints to build the future of that sector. So we look at them to understand what might be the things that come. Okay, so we are a little bit late, so I'm gonna close and wrap the session here. So thank you so much for attending, and we hope you are enjoying the Global Foresight Summit, and we are going into the next session right away. So stay in the website, and it will reload automatically. So thank you so much, and see you now. Bye-bye.